All about the money.
Follow the money, they do say.
All right, let's go to Akash. Akash Anavarathan with us here, Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports on this Monday. Akash, thanks for joining us as always, my friend. Your thoughts on Ji'Ayir Brown?
Excited for the 49ers to add another versatile safety from Penn State. I've heard he's, exactly, he fits the bill for a 49er. What you think of: tough nose, great character. And I think he's going to come in here and he's going to have a chance to learn under Gibson and Hufanga, and he's going to be a contributor this season.
Let me take a step back before I know you already got into one individual move, but just looking at this offseason, Akash, the guys they've lost, the guys they've brought in, can you look at this 49ers team and say that they're better than they were when last season ended?
I think so. I think, when you just look at the overall list of players they lost and maybe the players they added, I think that doesn't take into account some of the guys that they expect to take, a leap forward. And it's already an extremely talented roster. And I think, as we all know, it kind of hinges on that quarterback position, the health of Brock Purdy, development of Trey Lance, and, the potential of Sam Darnold. So I'm not necessarily too worried. A lot of those guys, filled in depth roles, and some of them are valuable contributors, no doubt. But, if there's anything that we know, the 49ers coaching staff has done a good job of developing some of the younger guys, and I expect them to, step into roles. And they've done a good job of, drafting guys a year early. A name like Drake Jackson, who I'd expect to be a big contributor this year. He's not necessarily someone that they added this offseason, but he's going to have a much bigger role than he did last season. So, moves like that they make a year early is going to pay off hopefully this season.
Akash Anavarathan is with us. Akash, go back to the draft here. I want to circle back to that. Did you have any issue with the Niners selecting Moody in the third round?
Absolutely not. I mean, I know, it ended up being the butt of jokes, but Jake Moody clearly, the cream of the crop when it comes to kickers in this draft class. I think the Niners believe that. I think he was a cut above Chad Ryland and Anders Carlson, who were some of the other kickers drafted after Jake Moody. They obviously didn't have a fourth round pick, and I think their next pick was at the end of the fifth round, and they felt if they didn't take Moody here at the end of the third, he probably wouldn't be there. And, ultimately, as long as Jake Moody turns into a reliable kicker, and develops into someone who they can rely on and contributes for this team for a while, I absolutely don't mind using that third round pick there. And, if you look at their, drafting history in the third round, it hasn't been great, whether it's been, Joe Williams or Trey Sermon or Ambry Thomas, who hasn't necessarily contributed on defense. It's, if Jake Moody turns out to be a stud at kicker, then I think it's well worth the pick.
It's another offseason, which means another few months of discussing the 49ers quarterback situation constantly wherever people talk about football. Akash, do you think that there is some question in the building about who will start week one, or do you think that's more just a product of dead time on the NFL calendar and folks need to fill up the airwaves with something?
I think it's a little combination of both. I think, Brock Purdy's health obviously is the biggest question mark, and that's just somewhat of an unknown. I think, here in early June at the 12-week mark of his recovery timeline, we'll get a better idea if he's able to throw and get into, a rehab program that puts him on track to return early this season, or, if he experiences some setbacks. And I think that'll provide some clarity as to where they stand in their quarterback situation, because I think internally, amongst whether it's coaching staff or the front office, publicly they've been pretty clear in their stance that they think Brock Purdy's the starter when healthy. So the big question just becomes his health. And then, the unknown of Trey Lance, causes a lot of, guessing, whether that's in the media or online, just because, he's only played 4 games. And I think a lot of people are wondering what he would look like this season if he were given the opportunity to play. And then same thing with Sam Darnold, right? I think Sam Darnold, well documented, just, the constant rotation of coaches, offensive coordinators, supporting cast, and seems like he's in the best situation he's been in his career. So I think a lot of people are wondering what, Darnold could look like if he's needed in some sort of spot starter duty. So I think it's just kind of the unknown with each quarterback on the roster that's causing some uncertainty. But I think it all starts with Purdy's health.
Last one for you, Akash. When does a Bosa extension get done?
As always with this team, it feels like these extensions don't get done until training camp.
Right.
As they say, deadlines create action, and there's no real urgency especially with a player like Nick Bosa, who generally trains away from the team during OTAs, and until training camp, he's off in Florida with Joey, his brother, and his own personal training staff working out there, and somehow comes back in better shape. So I imagine, we won't see an extension until then, but not necessarily concerned. I can't imagine there's much of a back and forth there, given what, Bosa put on tape last year, obviously being the defensive player of the year. I think it's pretty clear what his contract's going to be. And I think the 49ers are going to back up the Brinks truck for him.
Akash, we appreciate the time as always, man. Thanks a lot. Let's do it again soon.
Of course, appreciate you guys.
Thank you. There goes Akash Anavarathan from Niners Nation on the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda is your one-stop Honda shop. Did not get to ask him about the offensive tackle position. I think it's interesting that the Niners are very, very comfortable with McKivitz. Yeah, they did not use a draft pick on a young developmental offensive tackle. They're making the statement that they believe in what they have. And, look, Trent Williams is the best tackle in the game. It's just whether or not I don't know if you'd call it a gamble, but the shot at McKivitz being that guy on the right side after McGlinchey walked be pretty interesting if that does not work out, and then you're left with a hole on the right side. We'll have to wait and see. But no offensive tackle prospect taken by them in that draft. So that
like what they got.
That was one of the things that stood out to me the most.